Greetings, Guzzlers. Oh, by the way, might have noticed, not my normal tiny rebel glass. They're out the window. Told you that before. My new go-to brewery, Camden Town Brewery. I'm drinking lager, and it's because it's summery, sun's out, so thought I want something fresh, something crisp. That's sort of semi-fresh and crisp. But we're going to have a salad. We're going to make, now, of course, it's whether we've got any in stock, isn't it? Because we're going to make a Waldorf salad.
Could you make me a Waldorf salad?
A what?
Waldorf salad.
Well, I think we're just out of Waldorf.
Now, this Waldorf salad is actually a slightly different one from your traditional, because I've gone Jamie again. All right, geezer. We're going to have a Jamie Oliver version of a Waldorf salad. And just in case you don't know what a Waldorf, don't you dare, a Waldorf is, I managed to capture an image of one earlier. There we go. And it has all the ingredients that you typically find in the Waldorf salad. We've got some lettuce, we've got apple, we've got walnuts, and some weird looking celery. So if you can find yourself a Waldorf, you can follow along and make a Waldorf salad. But don't be fooled by this docile exterior, because this is when it's not pissed off. This is what happens when it gets pissed off. What? What's the wife doing with it? Alexander Skarsgård. I need to have words with her. Right, I've had words with her. Because if you remember from past episodes, she keeps on about me and the bloody pasta queen. Caught her out. Caught her out. She's been papped. With a famous actor, no less. Anyway, as I was saying, that's the docile one. That's when you piss it off and you try and get the ingredients off of it. So we might want to be careful. And anyway, it's a Jamie version. And Jamie decides that he's going to do something a little bit different with your grapes and your walnuts. So what I've got here is 150 grams, split roughly, green and red, of grapes, and I've got about 60 odd grams of walnut halves. And what he's decided to do, excuse me, the only trouble is with drinking that long, it's a bit gassy. He sort of roasts them a little bit. So we're going to. Now normally, traditionally, you wouldn't. You would just have the grapes. And actually, if you want to be really traditional, you just have green ones. Because lettuce is green, celery is green, grapes are green. Well, if you have green ones. Well, I was going to then say, and then you got your walnuts, but they're not green, but then whatever. But so we're going to use some green. Now, we're going to leave them on the stalks. Doesn't matter if they're not on the stalks. Don't have to panic. You don't have to go by the now, Jamie shoved them in the oven. Far too extravagant, putting the oven on just for that. I'm going to do them in an air fryer. So, I've put some grapes in there. And then we're just going to give them a little bit of a spray with some olive oil. If you're doing them on a tray and doing them in the oven at 180 is what he does. He just drizzles some olive oil over it and then gets his fingers in there, massage it all in it. But given we're going in the air fryer, I'm going to do it that way. But not just about doing the grapes. Let me move that forward a little bit, you see that? Okay, because what we're going to do, what have I done with it? I thought I've got a lemon out. I need a lemon. I swear blind, I got a lemon out earlier. But anyway, I've got another one. And in the background you can hear I've got my air fryer, I'm just preheating. Whether you need to bother or not, I don't know. Now, if you watch the YouTube he does of this, he doesn't do what I'm about to do, but if you read his recipe on his website, he does do this. So I'm going to do it. So we're basically going to just add some lemon zest. He says about half a lemon, although I must admit his lemons are a little bit bigger than mine. Well, everything's bigger with him. Actually, if you find the video, he keeps on about all the animals shagging in the background. And I'm not joking either. He literally keeps on about they're all at it over there. Because he's doing this sort of springtime, and all he keeps on about every now and again, he's doing like, alright mate, or they're at it again. Can you hear that? He just keeps referring to that animal shagging at that. So we've got that on there. Like I said, I've already give it a little bit of a spray with what's name? Olive oil, bit of salt, bit of pepper, and then the final thing you want to do. Thing got stuck in there. Is just going to slice that, and we're just going to squeeze over half the lemon over that. Now we're going to want the other half in a bit. Okay, now the nuts will be going in there, but not yet. So what we're now going to do is take our drawer, and I'm just going to drop that in there. And now we're just going to give that about 8 minutes or so at about 170. Okay, and then we're going to undo it. We can take it out. We're going to put the nuts in. He said, grab your nuts. That's what he says it again. He's obsessed. The bloke is obsessed. We're going to make our dressing, okay? Because some of the ingredients, if we don't sort of get them sort of coated in the dressing, they're going to start browning and things like that. So probably a little bit bigger than I need, but there you go. Who cares? So in that bowl, we're going to do a dressing which has got your mustard in it. I'm using Dijon mustard. Jamie uses English. Well, I would have done, but I ain't got any. To be honest, given that this recipe originated in New York, I don't know what they would have used. They use mustard, but whether they use English, French, who knows? Because this was a recipe that was from the Waldorf Hotel, which is why it's called the Waldorf salad, created for a charity ball in 1896, March 13th as it happened, and it was a charity ball in honour of St Mary's Hospital for Children. And at the time, the Waldorf Astoria, the Waldorf Astoria Hotel, had a maitre d'hotel, Oscar Chursky or something like that, begins with a T. Okay, and he's the one credited with creating this salad. Like I say, in 1896, and it then appeared in a cookbook about that same time, which was the cookbook by Oscar of the Waldorf, because he was Oscar Chursky. Okay, and the original recipe was just apples, celery, and mayonnaise, no nuts. But by 1928, there was another cookbook talking about making it, and they'd added the nuts to it. So anyway, you're going to want some lemon juice, some mustard, some Greek yoghurt, and oi, because you want to be healthy, you can have low-fat yoghurt. So when I said to the wife, get me some yoghurt, and yes, you can have your bloody low-fat, flat. Yeah, low-fat. I'm still traumatised by this. She thinks it's bloody hilarious. Look at her. Cavorting with an actor. Cavorting. I'll just mention Patty Queen's name. Oh, good job with some more in the fridge. Now, I was about to do the dressing, and you might suddenly realise the bowl's grown. Because I suddenly thought to myself, why am I doing the dressing in one bowl? Because I'm going to put some of the ingredients in there, and then I'm going to put the dressing in it. I'm going to just put the dressing in here. So wash it up. So anyway, and after all that debate and getting another breeder out of the fridge, air fryer's finished. So we take that out of there. Now, at the moment, some of them are starting to look a little bit shriveled. But what we're going to do is now we're just going to put those nuts in there. Okay, and might just give them a little bit of a spritz. I think that's leaking that. That's our words with that. Now that's going to go in for about another 8 minutes or so. We want to start getting a bit of caramelisation going on. Okay, but the thing is, you want to do all this up front because we want to cool it before we chuck it in the salad. Hence the reason we're doing all this bit first, and I'm not really worried too much about that. So this going in about another 8 minutes. So, olive oil. On about a tablespoon of olive oil. A little bit of seasoning. Bit of salt, bit of pepper. We want a generous teaspoon of the mustard. Get in there. That's going to make a beer taste funny. Oh dear me. And then the other half of that lemon. Don't you make a bleeding mess everywhere, you git. And then you're going to want, this is a 500 gram packet. 500, yeah. You're going to want about half of that. So, I think. Much nicer. Now, Jamie uses tarragon, fresh tarragon. I'm using fresh chives. So we're just going to dice that thinly. Sharpen my knives earlier. Made a big difference. Although I've missed a couple of bits there. The tarragon will give it a nice aniseedy flavour, but part of the reason, whoops, got to take it out. Part of the reason we're not using tarragon, get them big lumps out, is simply the fact that Tesco didn't have any. Because although Tesco's wasn't one of the supermarkets that got hacked, it does appear that they seem to be down on certain stocks. Yes, because about this time at the moment, with a couple of major retailers are just recovering from the fact that hackers have got into their systems and it's screwed up all their bloody stock. Mainly because obviously they've had to pull the plug on their systems. But anyway, so that's in there, and what we're going to do now is just give this a whisk together. And that is our dressing for our Waldorf salad. Okay, like I say, the original recipe just had mayonnaise. We got oil. Oh no, that's egg in it. Never mind, get that. Rewind. The original recipe had mayonnaise, but we made an alternative one. So now we can just set that to one side for a minute. Just going to clear this mess up, and then we'll start preparing the veg. Now in the meantime, you can probably hear grapes still cooking. Remember, we want them to cool. We don't want to be putting them hot into that. So we've got our dressing done. Don't bloody splash that everywhere, you little shite. And now we're going to start preparing the ingredients. So we're about to go from this lovely little docile creature to this vicious man-eating beast, because we're going to take our celery now. Unfortunately, because of supply issues, like I just said, I've been forced to have sort of like prepared celery sticks. Jamie does it with the whole celery stick, if you like, and first thing he does, which is what we're going to do to this, is using a peeler, one of these sort. We just do the outside, and this helps get rid of those stringy bits. Now, where this now differs is that he doesn't chop off the bottom. He chops off the top bit, but he doesn't chop off the bottoms, because he uses a peeler to sort of go around the bottom, because he wants to keep the heart, if you like, intact. We can't do that. So what I'm going to do is, having trimmed it, I'm just going to take the bottoms off. Just do a little bit more. And because this has all been trimmed, it's gone a bit sort of dried and manky on the top. So I'm just going to take the tops off as well. Okay, like I say, he just chops the top off, and he leaves about a third of the celery, which he calls the heart, which is what he then goes on to slice up slightly differently. But if you want to check out his video, but if you're a bit of a sensitive creature, you might want to avoid, because like I said, he keeps on about all the animal shagging in the background. He cooks this outside in his well, I suppose like his out-the-door pizza oven or whatever. Well, that's where he does the grapes anyway. So I'm just going to finish off de-stringing the outside, if you like, of these celery sticks, and just topping and tailing them, so that we can already then to start preparing them to go in there. And the other unfortunate thing is, I'm thinking, although we've got quite a lot of lettuce there, given that we haven't got as much celery as I thought we were going to have, it might be very dressing heavy. Just realised the air fryer's finished, so I'm just going to take that out, because like I said, I want this to cool down. Now, I know this is a silicone thing, it's been in the oven, it gets hot, right? I'm just trying to work out how to get this out of here without getting my tea towel all in there, and also burning myself on the sides. I'm just going to lift this out, put that on there, and I think you can just about see, let me get rid of that for a minute. I think you can see, oh, come here. We've got a little bit of shrivel going on, a bit of caramelisation. So we're just going to let that cool, okay? Now, we now take our celery. Now, if you were just doing this with the top bits, as it were, like I said, the bottom bit, he leaves the heart actually about that big, and he actually slices it into matchsticks that way. Okay, but we haven't got the heart, so instead we're just going to slice this up like this, and then we will chuck that stringy bit. Give me that. We're then going to just chuck that into that dressing. Okay. So, to be honest, it's only really when we come to the apple that we want to make sure we've got our dressing ready, because the apple will start to brown if we don't do something about it. PDQ. So I'm just going to finish off my celery. I told you about the origin of Waldorf. Not much else to tell you really. Let me just chuck some of that in there, get it out of the way. 40 towers. I don't know if these days you might talk about 40 towers, but 40 towers.
Could you make me a Waldorf salad?
A what?
Waldorf salad.
Well, I think we're just out of Waldorf.
So there's the celery in there. Just going to give that a little toss through. Okay, I'm not too worried about mixing it yet because remember we've got everything else in there. Now, you either want Cos or Romaine lettuce, and all I'm just going to do is just remove some of these mankier looking outer leaves. Now, what he then says is you take the top part of your lettuce and we sort of just chop that up. You might want to give it a wash, okay, but we're just taking that more intense green bits off like that. Okay, you can see quite chunky. We're going to chuck that in the bowl. Now, with the remaining bit, that's a bit of that. Again, what he does is, in this case, we now do the next third, if you like, a little bit finer, and we leave the last little bit because this is what we would have done if we'd had the celery heart. Sitting there leaning over like this one, so once you've got down to that bit and you're giving your celery a bit of a wash, you can chuck that in that bowl. As our nuts doing. Yeah, that's all cooling down. Excellent. So now we take that bottom bit and we just slice that in half, and I'm just going to take the very bottom off because rather than cutting it that way, we're cutting it more like it's in matchsticks, and the idea being potentially this gives a bit more crunch to it, and in that goes in there as well. So like I say, Jamie did this to the what he called the celery heart, which obviously is a bit more crunchy. As it happens, actually, now I've done all that in there, there's not too much dressing. So we're almost there, and I was saying to you about 40 towers. If you're a fan of 40 towers, which I think I might have mentioned once before, people don't realise how few episodes there were, and although some of them are very controversial now, like the ones about the war and Germans and things like that, but at the end of the day, it certainly wasn't glorifying these things. But anyway, I digress. That's all irrelevant, because this is more to do with a guest, an American guest that is in the hotel, and as usual, Basil 40 wants to impress because, you know, he's American, he's got money, he thinks he's this big hotelier, and the Americans have arrived late and they say, we'd like to eat in the restaurant, please. And unfortunately, the restaurant is shut. Because like a lot of places, particularly back then, actually even some places in England now, you know, at a certain time, they close the restaurant. And in this case, it's shut. And he says, I'm sorry, it's shut. And it's like, we want a meal. So he agrees, thinking that's easy. The chef won't stay, but he thinks, well, it's not difficult, is it? I can knock up whatever they want. And he asks for a Waldorf salad. And Basil has not got a clue what a Waldorf salad is. But anyway, if you want to watch about that, you'll have to watch it. So that's got that in there. Next thing we want to do, and clear down the decks, is take 2 apples. I think these are pink ladies. You can use Cox, you can use Braeburn, you can use what you like. But aside from what we've prepared here, it's the apples are the final thing to put in there. Now, I told you what the original was like. Nowadays, you do find different fruits going in it, slightly different dressings. There's even a variation with peanut butter. That sounds nice. I like peanut water. Pardon me. Peanut butter and yoghurt base. And then one that says instead of putting celery in it, put cauliflower in it. That would be a bit odd, but never mind. I take it means raw cauliflower. Not mushy cooked cauliflower. Anyway, so let me just clear a bit of room here and we'll just do our apples. I've already sliced one of the onions into thin slices. Okay, and now what we're doing is we're just cutting those slices into sort of thinnish matchsticks, and in they go. So I'm one of those people who doesn't like having the old middle bit in it, so I've stopped around the core, but if you don't mind that, you can cut that up and put that in there if you want. If you're one of them weird people who eats that bit. Just remember, if you swallow the seeds, you get an apple tree growing inside you. Fact. I know that because we used to say that at school. If you swallow one seed, you're going to get apple tree growing inside you. Don't know if anybody ever did, but there you go. Probably because they didn't swallow the seeds. There you go, that's what it was. We got so frightened. So, look, so you take your apple and just take some thin slices off. And then when I get to the core, I'm just turning around. So, we're just going to carry on like that, cutting them into matchsticks, chuck that in there, and then, what's the wife doing in there making a noise? Brought it all back to me, then I mentioned the wife. Alexander Skarsgård. I don't know, the old tart. Pasta queen, pasta queen, pasta queen, pasta queen. Get me home back. That's got that all mixed in there. I'll put the gloves on because this is the bit where we're going to get our hands messy. So we remove some of them grapes. Gone a bit squashed and mushy, that don't matter. The juices are coming out. And we're just going to keep some of them back. Sort of bit like a final dressing, but to be honest, by the time you've tossed it all together again the second time, it's probably a bit pointless. I'm just having to stop and just pull some of the stalks are coming off with these. So I've kept a few of them back, and then we take some of those nuts, and what we're doing is we're just crushing them up and chucking them on the floor. Just again, just leave a few there just for final decoration. Nuts perhaps aren't quite as sort of caramelised, but then again we didn't put anything on them really to caramelise it. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my hands in there. Well, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that glove off. And just going to give that a little bit of a mix around, but I'm now just going to toss all that together. Remember, I used a spoon earlier. Jamie does all of this with his hands because he likes getting his hands in there, and actually in hindsight I could have done with me bigger bowl, I think. You can hear a little bit of the crunch going on that's in there. So remember, we've got, you know, thin bits, we've got thicker bits. So that's all tossed together. So our final thing, I'm just going to put that there for a minute, is we're just going to chuck the remaining nuts, and if there's any juices or anything else onto that, and then we're just going to put on over the top of that the remaining grapes. Okay, and then I think a bit of stalk in there, who knows. Obviously you want, well, you don't have to have, but these days most people would say, I don't like seeds in the grapes, so I want seedless. Okay, so there you go. That is your Jamie Oliver Waldorf salad with semi-caramelised grapes and sort of roasted walnuts. And given that we're having a nice crisp salad on a summer evening, sort of, we're sort of semi-summer here, but it's been behaving like summer. Nice crisp Sauvignon Blanc. So I better serve that up. By the way, that makes enough for 4, according to Jamie. So I'm just going to serve that up and we'll have a little tasting. So here we have it. Let's give it a little go. A nice crunch. You're getting the apple, a hint of lemon. A little bit of a tang of the yoghurt. Wouldn't say you get much of that mustard through. I think I was tempted to do it, and then I thought, no, I'll probably do it over the top. I was tempted to add more mustard. Well, I thought I better not. But I think next time I would add more mustard. Just nice and fresh. Nice crunch. I haven't really nuts yet. You got some sweetness there. You got a little bit of salt sour there. I mean, what is there not to like? So, your Waldorf salad. Happy, angry. And this makes me angry. This is the bloody wife. The wife! And a bloody actor. All I do is just mention the between, and I'm shocked. I'm going to have to have words with her. I think I'll eat half her salad. Here you go, that'll punish her.
Could you make me a Waldorf salad?
Oh, a what?
Waldorf salad.
Well, I think we're just out of Waldorf.